And we're back in the long dark. As you can hear, it's quite cold outside. And I don't have anything to eat. Oh, I don't have anything to drink that isn't sugar, but I should eat as well. In general, having drinkable water is always a better thing. I am completely rested, and I'm still in here. That's right. And it is still late. Now, being stuck inside, well, it's a lot better than being stuck outside if you have that kind of weather. Your biggest things you have to worry about when you're stuck inside for a long period of time are, well, how much food you're going to have, how warm it's going to stay, because despite what everybody thinks, it does get colder inside building that kind of weather. So now we have some more, broth. More cookables. So what I'm going to do right here, this is kind of cheesing the game a bit. Breaking down wood using your hands, because you can't break down stuff with tools in the dark. Now, yep. Now, breaking down something like a chair with your bare hands, honestly, with how most modern construction is, that's not too hard. If you try to do it with something that's been joined really well, you might have more of an issue. But you also have the problem that, in all honesty, really good furniture, the
I can barely walk with this much gear.
now I can go back upstairs and cook, boil up some water. Now, I've talked a lot about, dealing with heat, dealing with cooking, water, everything like that. I think right now, while I'm just sitting here and cooking up stuff, I'm gonna talk a little bit about just how things should be done. And when I say how things should be done, I mean there are some rules that generally people are supposed to follow when you're dealing with being out in the middle of nowhere.
Could end up being useful.
Um, but I've mentioned the rules of three before, being that you have 3 minutes you can survive without air, 3 hours you can survive proper without proper shelter, 3 days you can go without water, 3 weeks you can go without food. But there are also rules that you're supposed to follow that are more akin to, I guess, what I would deem best practices. And as far as best practices go, one of the first ones that how much time? Yes, I have enough time. One of the best ones that I can remember is dealing with water. You should not ever try to ration water if you can. If you have to share it, you have to share it. But what you shouldn't ever be doing is going, oh, well, I need to save this water for later. If you're thirsty, drink.
This pack is getting too heavy to carry.
Yeah, an extra 20 pounds, I would do that. I got plenty of arrows. Still windy as all heck. Let's see, what do I got that's taking up so much weight? These acorns, I have a little bit of cloth, feathers, cured leather, ptarmigan down. I don't have any extra clothes on. Do I have anything that really needs repairing? Not so much. 2.4 kilograms. Books and sticks. We'll drop that for now. Yeah, a lot of it is carried food. So let's get rid of some of this stuff. Now, what would you get rid of when you're doing something like this? Stuff that would sit for a while. Components that you're not going to use to cook anytime soon. In this case, stuff like flour, stuff like oil, even the oats probably would be good. The broth, probably the broth too. And you look at it, I'm carrying a lot of coffee, so I'll put some of the coffee back. And I'll bring some tea. Okay, here we go. Done with that. Let's see. So that's about 4 kilograms I cut. So now we'll go through the tools. I have a rifle. I have a survival bow. The survival bow is not very heavy. Several arrows. Let's go to there so I don't... That's a lot of fuel I'm still carrying. First thing we'll do is we'll refuel. Now, when talking about weight, there's a couple things you can actually pay attention to. And I should do that. Because even if I find the pistol, I'm probably not going to use it. So, here we go. Actions. Hey. That is rifle ammunition. I'm glad I spotted that. Revolver ammunition. I don't care if I take apart revolver ammunition. I'm not carrying a revolver. I'm carrying a rifle. And that is a good thing to think about. If you're if you're going to be walking through a forest or something similar, and you're carrying a weapon already, you have to think, well, how many weapons do I actually need to carry? That's not going to do me any good right now. Components. I guess I did get the bullet. Oh well. Yeah, I don't know where there's actually a place to do that. I have plenty of revolver ammunition. Let's go take a look outside. I know that the game has occasionally had issues where the weather inside and the weather outside don't match. It's kind of a shame that you can't see out any of the windows, but that's, what you have to deal with. As you can see, it's not super. I don't know if I'd want to continue my journey in this. see. It's almost midday. I will forego that. Instead, we'll go and see what I can find. I have plenty of water. I have food. I have a little bit of firewood. I just have to keep an eye out. Yeah. Again, I was going to talk about some general rules. Now, how to know if you're well hydrated. It's a very simple thing. If you ever served in the military, you'll probably remember going to a urinal or a bathroom and seeing a color chart on the wall, which goes from practically white down to a dark brown, and with some yellows and yellow browns in the middle of it. That is basically the dehydration chart, and it's based entirely on how dark your urine is. So if you're in a survival situation and you pee, you look, you see, is it coming out relatively clear? Is it coming out relatively dark? The darker it is, the more water you're going to need to drink. And I think I just came out in a storm, but I'm still warm enough, which is good, because that means I can look around without most of the wildlife giving me a problem. I've already been through here. So let's head down. Nope. Guess it's not that bad of a storm. There's still wolves out there. Now, as soon as I pulled this rifle out, I'm going slower, but that's okay. Now, if you need to, I'm also going straight into the wind. But as just good general knowledge to know, the way they have Mackenzie here walking is actually a pretty appropriate way to walk around carrying your rifle. Generally speaking, you do not want to carry it with just one hand. If you're carrying it with one hand, you're probably going to put it underneath the buttstock. And nope, can't go around that way. Got to go around this way. And you keep the barrel pointed away from anything other than maybe the ground. But in a situation that looks like this, oh look, there's the bear too. You know what? It's not worth it going and dealing with that many animals for an unknown amount of reward. If I knew there was something, actually really useful there, I might risk it. But all I know is there might be something in that one fishing hut. That's the only thing I hadn't visited yet. And that's the next thing you end up having to start doing in survival situations. You start having to do risk assessment. Should I try to, move down this steep cliff face? Do I have any way I can make it safer? How fast do we need to go down this steep cliff face? If you're dealing with lots of cold and wind and you don't have enough insulation on, that's very different than, if you do. Because then if you have enough insulation, if you're not starting to freeze, you can take your time, you can take your steps, you can look ahead and go, which way is the best way for me to go. Whereas if you're already cold and you're searching for shelter, you're probably going to be moving a bit faster, and you're a little less likely to get, exactly what you want. I'm not. Might as well grab a few more. Yeah. That's another one of those skills you have to pick up in a survival situation. The ability to keep track of not only where you're going, but what's around you. Knowing what around you you can actually use. If you're walking near a stream and you see some cattails, stop and pick them up. You're not going to get a lot of calories out of cattails, but even, the 40, maybe 100 calories you could get out of finding a few stalks could still be worth it if for no other reason that there'll be something sitting in your stomach. And honestly, people take advantage of that kind of feeling all the time whenever you're on a diet and you start eating celery. Because you eat it, it gets in your system, it makes you feel full, but in reality, you don't have a lot of calories going in. Admittedly, in a survival situation, it's mostly to keep your morale up and to keep you being able to move, as opposed to trying to cut down on your calories. We will take this down for more wood. That. Now, I know morale is something that I talk about. Not every game actually has a morale system. Some people don't want to try to figure out a good system for it. Others go, I can make at least a simple system to do it and work from there. One game that I do like how they kind of carry it is Green Hell. I haven't actually played it. I've watched a few people play it, and I like the fact that they have that whole sanity thing, and you get sanity by doing things like sitting and relaxing by a fire, eating cooked meals or fresh fruit. Your sanity goes down, when you end up having to deal with things like, oh, I had leeches on me, or I ate like raw like a raw grub or something. In all honesty, yeah, eating raw grubs, that will kind of get you feeling ugh. Yeah. Do I have anything? No, I don't have anything else I really want right now. We'll go through some of this tomato soup. I can get more food on my way out. Maybe make some Bannocks in the morning. Some potatoes now. Now, sometimes one of the biggest complaints I have about games like this isn't so much that, oh well, you're sitting there cooking, but you can't do anything to improvise when you're cooking. I know some people are going to say, well, what do you mean improvise while you're cooking? Well, if you find potatoes and you find oil, you don't just have to bake your potatoes. You can fry them. And there's a lot of ways you can fry them. You can cut them up fine, put a little oil in, and make hash browns. You can, cut them bigger, put a bunch of oil in, and make actual fries. You have salt. You have pork and beans. You have a lot of different things that you can mix around and play with to make something a bit better. Now, part of it is there's only so much you can actually put in there in the game. So, especially with the food, there's a lot of different things you could find while you're doing this. And, if you don't, it makes recipes kind of hard at the same time. You have yourself, bags of flour, you have broth, you have, chocolate bars. Now, the flour and the broth, the cooking oil, the salt, all of those things are or even the oats, those things are all they're a basis for making better food. And if you're an experienced backpacker or survivalist, you should probably have some idea how to make some changes with the foods you're dealing with and go, okay, what can I make out of this that would make it better? With the condensed milk, the flour, the cooking oil, and water, you could make I don't know if I could make a like an actual pudding. I think you'd have to have an egg or two as well to make any kind of pudding out of that. But you could make a savory pudding. You have to have a piece of meat, which, as you hunt, you're gonna find pieces of meat. You take that and you make a batter to go with it, and you cook it, and that's actually how you make Yorkshire pudding. It's pretty simple to make, but it honestly goes really well with a nice with a well cooked steak or something similar. Now, what do we got left? We got 2 minutes. Not enough time to do anything. Enough time for me to look around. You know what? I should take this time, finish a book, maybe read another one. Some of that learning in place. I don't need any of these extra cans. Don't need the book. See if there's enough. Oh, I'm like, why is that? Oh, that's the one that's in my hand currently. I can't use. Let's see if I can actually read any of this. I can.
I think I need to lay down.
I got a little bit through it. Now, I haven't actually measured this yet. But this is something I'm going to ask anybody else who's played through Long Dark what your thought is on this. When you're sitting there sleeping, or when you're doing anything else, does it feel to you that the thirst goes down pretty quickly no matter what you're doing? I mean, I know. See it, so I can break it down. Does it feel like the water drop is really fast? Although at the same time, exactly, how much are we looking at here? I still have enough. I still have enough to cook some breakfast with. So let's cook some breakfast. Use the cattail head. Use the fire striker.
Come on. Come on. That's done.
And I don't have enough cooking. Bannock. Oh. Maybe I do. I took the flour and the oil and the flour out of my flour. Let's see if I can actually make some bannocks. My cooking, I'm actually up. Aha! I have enough cooking skill. So I'll use some of that time. And that was incredibly dumb of me not paying attention to the fire. Well, I'll get it back going. And remember to put more wood into the fire. Again, this is one of those things that is primarily a problem from playing games. Simply because it's really hard not to notice the fire going out on an open stove or anything. Now, you can, walk away and miss it, but generally if you're actually cooking using an open fire, you're not going to have that same kind of issue. Some more bannocks. And we're going to cook some more bannocks. Drink some water. And we're probably at the point where we should be getting ready to make our run. I think today is just going to be a day to do all of the different prep work that I need to do. Have acorns. Prepared acorns. There we go. I can cook those up later. Oh, I still have more bannocks too. So, what do I do next? Well, so that flour and oil, that would be really great, but it does not travel well. At least not in this game. in preparation, you're going to think, okay, what can I bring along that you know will stay well and give me stuff I need. Carrying the sodas is good because hey, guess what? That's hydration and calories. I have the canned food because that will last. I have the salty crackers because they're actually a really high. Uh, they're a really high source of calories without having a lot of weight. Same with the banged up condensed milk. The broth is interesting because you can heat it, and even if I'm not going to cook with it, I can still just heat it up and drink it like a soup, which is something that you can do in a survival situation. A lot of people carry around bouillon cubes or things like that, and even if they can't eat anything, they will get a big pail or kettle or whatever, fill it up with water, and dissolve a full bouillon cubes in there to give them that little bit of salt and taste. Um, and it actually helps hide the fact that the water, depending upon where you find it, may or may not taste very good. Even after boiling it, you may have just killed everything in it, but it's still, you know, not good tasting water. Um, I know in this game, the only ways that you have to to clean up your water is to boil it or to put it in, you know, put in something to just get rid of use a chemical tablet. But there are other ways. One thing that a lot of backpackers use is a portable filter, which, I mean, you can make a portable filter that gets out all that stuff. NASA did it back in the 60s because that's what they used to recycle all the water that left the astronauts. Um, I had a high school teacher who worked for NASA, and he explained that they made a one-way osmotic filter, and then they filled a bucket up with pee and filtered it through there so they could all drink it as their final test. Granted, they did a chemical test on it beforehand, but they still, they still filtered their pee and drank it. Now, you know what? I'm going to take a brief nap, and then next episode, I will start my trip. Unless, of course, the weather becomes totally horrible when I wake up, but it doesn't sound like it. So, next episode, we're heading down the train tracks, heading for the airport. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. Have a good day. Please like and subscribe, or leave comments. I'd love to hear back from you guys. Thank you and goodbye.